Today we're going to be taking a close look at a lens that has always piqued my interest, but up until a couple of weeks ago, I had never tried it before. This is the Leica 50mm Summicron Rigid. It's a vintage Leica lens with a lot of character and a pretty big reputation behind it. You see people using this lens a lot. If you've ever seen anything shot with this lens, it definitely has a very distinct look to it. I wanted to see what it was like to shoot with for myself, so I asked KEH if I could try this out for a couple of weeks, and they actually sent me a version that is ugly rated on their, grading scale in terms of the condition of the lens. Typically when buying from KEH, I've always stuck around the bargain grade and sometimes above. I've never actually tried or bought anything that was ugly rated, so I didn't, do that intentionally. I didn't ask for this version, but I was actually glad I got that because I got to see what it was like in person, and I was really curious. This is a pretty rough copy. How much of that is actually going to affect the image quality? So we're going to take a look at that as well today, kind of a little bonus, just seeing what an ugly rated piece of gear might actually get you, and if you could save even more money that way. Speaking of saving money, a quick reminder: starting today, Wednesday, November 22nd through Monday, November 27th, KEH is running their Black Friday sale. It's already that time of year, 10% off site-wide. Some exclusions there do apply, but this is another really good time if there's a lens or a camera body, anything that you've kind of been eyeing. Now would be a good time to take advantage of that. So there are links down below if you're interested. Just a quick reminder, running from November 22nd to November 27th. So you should probably get there while you can. But as I mentioned, this lens is rated in ugly condition, and it's currently retailing at the time of recording at $559 on KEH's site. I typically see really clean copies of this lens online, anywhere around $1,000, give or take $100 or so, or a couple $100, just depending on the overall condition. And again, this is November of 2023. If you're watching this video anytime in the future, who knows what the prices will be. Leica lenses kind of have their moments where if you bought a really clean version of this lens, you could probably spend the same amount of money on a modern Summicron in the same condition. But you're not going to get this look on a modern lens, and a modern lens isn't going to give you this look either. So it's really all about preference there. Now, for just a little bit of history on the lens itself, this was in production from 1956 to 1968. The term rigid in the name of the lens, this applies to the actual design of the lens not being collapsible. They had made a 50mm Summicron before this, but it had a collapsible design. This being just solid and rigid, it doesn't collapse at all. That's why it's called that, though I've never seen this be officially used by Leica in any way. Anywhere you look for this lens online, that's what it's known as, but on the actual lens itself, you don't see rigid anywhere. I've never seen it on the box for these lenses, so I don't know if it was ever actually used by Leica, but if you search for a 50mm Summicron Rigid, everyone knows that that's what this lens is. Searching for this lens online, you might also see the Leica 50mm Summicron dual range. It looks identical to this lens, but it has a little flat top right up here, and it has goggles, or these two little lenses that just attach onto the top of the lens. This was made with the same design of this lens, but it also added some close focusing capabilities. So if you're ever looking for this lens online and you're wondering why some of them have a flat top and some don't, that's the reason for it. But the most important thing about the lens, obviously, is the results, the look that you're going to get from this lens in comparison to other 50mm. This is a very distinct, unique look that you get with this lens. Again, you're not going to get it with any modern lenses. I've been wanting to try this lens specifically for that look. I've actually been wanting to try it out for a little over 10 years now. 10 years ago, in October of 2013, my good friend Josh, shout out to Josh, he flew in from Texas and stayed with us for a few days, and he shot this photo of me and Taker. And this was like a week after we adopted Taker. So in this photo, he's, scrawny, skin and bones. He was in rough shape when we got him. But he took this photo of us as we were going out for a hike, And the way that this lens rendered things, it has this really kind of swirl look to it around the edges, the fall off there, everything about it. I've always loved that photo, and anytime I've seen someone shooting with this lens or talking about this lens, that is the photo that pops up in my mind every single time. It's like just burned in my brain, and that's specifically for just the look of it. It's unlike any other 50mm that I've used. Over the last couple of weeks, I've used it just a little bit on my M6, though I haven't developed the film. Knowing that I only had a couple weeks with the lens, I've been using it on the SL2 a lot. So shooting with a very old and also rough condition lens like this on a high resolution modern camera, I felt like that was also kind of stress testing the lens a little bit and just seeing how far you could really push it, at least in the modern world. Shooting in really high contrast backlit scenarios, you can really see the sort of soft glow that this lens has, especially when you're shooting it wide open. In certain scenarios and certain distances from yourself to the subject, at least whatever it is that you're focusing on, you can really kind of see or exaggerate that sort of swirly look to the image. This is a very subjective thing. Some people might see that and they really can't stand it. I happen to love it. I think it has this really cool sort of dreamy feel to it while not feeling like you're using, like a toy lens or a lens baby or, something like that that's just a special effects lens. You're still getting a nice quality look from the lens. It just has a little bit more character to it and a little bit more of that kind of glowy look. I happen to like it a lot. Now, a couple of things I don't really like about the lens. First of all, the minimum focus distance. The dual range lens excluded because that's going to allow you to do close focusing with the little attachment. With this version, you have a 1 meter minimum focus distance. And when you just sort of think about it, it doesn't seem like that would make a huge difference compared to 0.7 meters. I think it might just be my muscle memory of kind of approaching something. And if I'm going to go to 0.7 as close as I can get, I kind of know that range just from years and years of doing it. So with this lens, I found myself backing up just a lot more when I would initially go to shoot something up close. Another thing I'm not really crazy about is this little focusing nub that is on the lens. It's not really like the traditional focusing tab that's sort of crescent shaped like you see on a lot of Leica or rangefinder lenses. Those I just find more comfortable. This lens, it has this little nub and it also has an infinity lock. So when you focus to infinity, it actually locks into place. And in order to move it from that, you have to push in on this little nub and then you're free to rotate it. I'm not really sure the practical use of the infinity lock is. I don't know if it's just to sort of protect the lens and keep it from, moving around or something. I don't know. If you know why the infinity lock was actually put on this lens or other lenses, let me know in the comments because I'm kind of curious about that. We actually shot this lens and Nathan's lens side by side just for the sake of comparison because, again, this lens, an ugly rated version of the lens, it's in pretty rough shape. The glass itself, the inside of the lens, you can tell that this lens has seen better days. However, Nathan's lens being super clean, the glass looks incredible. I wanted to see what kind of difference that actually made in the image quality, and you can tell a difference, but really not as much as I thought you would. You can see that with the rough, ugly rated version of the lens, it's going to be slightly different in terms of sharpness. It's going to be just slightly less sharp. It's going to have a little bit less contrast. Nathan's copy definitely has a sharper, more punchy look to it. It also came in a little bit warmer as well, so it was interesting to see that alone, just the color shift between the two lenses with the same white balance and same settings. You do get a little bit of a different color there. But with just some minor tweaks in Lightroom, you can kind of, fix those issues, if you will. You can warm it up just slightly, add just a little bit of contrast, maybe a tiny bit of dehaze. Just those quick adjustments with a lens from the 50s and 60s on a modern high-resolution camera, I was genuinely surprised at how well this held up, especially with the condition that it's in. Speaking of Nathan, the young boy is growing up before our eyes. He just recently got engaged, so huge congrats to Nathan and Bethany. I went out with them just a couple of nights ago and shot some portraits of them. I took this lens and pretty much used this for the vast majority of things. I used my 35 for a couple, but I really used this lens for the majority, and I wanted to see what it was like in different lighting conditions, shooting into the light, playing with that flare, because this lens, again, in backlit scenarios, shooting into the light, it has some wild flaring, but I wanted to just play with it and have fun, and they were up for that as well. And I also don't want to portray this lens as just being a gimmick lens or something you use when all you want is that glowy kind of look. You can absolutely achieve that, and it's a lot of fun to experiment with that and shooting into the light. But if you are looking for just a solid, sharp image, using it the right way, you can still get good, sharp images from it. Now, as much as I like getting new gear and trying new gear out, I think it's a lot of fun to see how different gear makes you shoot. Typically, I don't hoard a lot of camera gear or keep a lot of camera gear at any given time. If I'm going to buy something, I'm going to sell stuff first. So I usually only have, a couple of cameras and a lens for each camera and just keep it as simple as possible. But I've had to really try hard to not tell KEH, like, hey, just send me an invoice. I'm going to hang on to this thing. I can't speak for all of the gear that KEH has rated ugly in the condition, but for this lens in particular, I was just genuinely shocked. For the price of this lens, and despite its condition, the quality and the results that I got from it, that was really tempting for me. But I am going to be sending this back to KEH. However, it's probably not the last time I'm ever going to shoot with this lens. I'd say that's a safe bet. But if you've shot with this lens or any lenses kind of similar to this or something that gives you sort of a similar look, let me know about them in the comments and just what your thoughts are on lenses like this. I think it's going to vary quite a bit because I don't think this look is for everybody, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that as well. Again, a huge shout out to KEH Camera for sponsoring this video and letting me try this lens out for the last couple of weeks. They've been a sponsor here on the channel forever. They've been in business for over 40 years, buying, selling, and trading used photography gear, keeping things sustainable, keeping gear from just going in a landfill, and also helping us save some money along the way. So again, huge Black Friday sale going on right now through Monday the 27th. Using the links and codes down below, that's also going to help support the channel at no extra cost to you. So I appreciate all of you that do that. It means the world. And again, huge thank you to KEH Camera for sponsoring the video. So if you have any questions, any thoughts at all, let me know in the comments down below. But that's it for today. So thank you all for watching. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.